Thank you for staying with Daybreak. Let's start that conversation with the young people here in panel in studio so that we hear from them verbatim, firsthand, what the experience is like, what they think that is ailing the education sector. Is SHA working? That's a conversation we're having this morning. Let's start off with the issues of education. And my guests are already with me. Let me introduce them one more time, starting from the upper deck. Victor Kiprono is the CEO of Zero Barefoot Campaign. Thank you for making time. Right next to him is Evans Osapiri, who's a youth leader. Thank you very much for making time. Right next to him is Peter Edwin, youth leader Wiper. Thank you very much for making time. Linus Okita is an economist and public policy expert. Thank you for making time. We're still waiting for Honorable Wanjiku Muturi, MCA from Kiambu, and Honorable Sheila Sifuma, MCA from Bungoma. As soon as they come in, we'll rope them into this discussion. But Victor, I'll start with you on this. So what is really ailing the education sector? We've seen yesterday the president giving an order that all grade 10 students to report to school this morning without fail, with or without school fees, because government has already given capitation fees, what, 44 billion that has been sent to school, so children should be able to go there. But parents are also saying that we don't even have the fare to take them to school. What is ailing the education sector in your view?
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you once again for giving me this opportunity as a young person to put my voice in the education sector. I believe we have had challenges in the past, and we continue to have challenges in the education sector, because I understand that in every transition there must be challenges. And these challenges was witnessed once the CBE, the competence-based education, was introduced. And I am made to understand that these challenges have come because of the transition. Kids are transitioning from junior secondary school to now senior secondary school. And the main challenge actually that parents are facing is this transition whereby they have to change the school. The main actually challenge is the school uniform, where parents are having the burden of now changing the school uniform that they used to wear in the junior secondary school to now senior secondary school. The uniform issue, the school fees issue, and also there was an issue of choosing courses. There is STEM, there is sports, and then there is this other one, there is these three categories. Parents were confused in that transition. And you understand, Trevor, in any transition, there must be challenges when you're transitioning from one mode of education to another. You understand, when we were in 844, because I am a beneficiary of 844, the system was running smoothly because people were used to a certain kind of system where you could go to nursery school, go to class 1 to 8, and then go to high school. But now we are faced with a system which is new to the people, and people are now adjusting. I am made to believe that progressively we will get there, because if you see at the moment, 90% actually, 90% statistically, 1.1 million learners are supposed to transition. But 90% are the ones who have been able to join school, leaving the 10% who are struggling with school uniform and school fees out. And the president gave an order yesterday of immediate enrollment to school. What does that leave parents in and students? The immediate enrollment to school therefore means if you don't have perhaps school uniform, you can use the uniform that you are using in the junior school. And then the government, the way you're saying, has released capitation. Then teachers have been instructed that they can allow now students to go to school. But then there's other issues of now what you're saying, fair. But also it is a moral obligation of every parent and every guardian to understand that I have a kid perhaps who is going to grade 10. And you know, Kenya, we have a culture. Usually when we were in holidays, Christmas, people were marrying and traveling and doing Christmas and New Year. But we have also to get a culture of saving and knowing that the future of our country relies on the children. So that when the president is saying you can go, the capitation, government has released capitation, you just come again and say you don't have fare. I mean, you also need to be fair to the regime of the day. And also as a parent, what is your mandate as a parent? You know, parents also should take up their space in education. As much as government is doing the 90%, also parents and guardians to take the other percent, or even trying to make sure that even kids can now access fare of even 500, 1,000 to go to school. Government is saying within the next window, they will be able to provide school fees and uniform for those needy students. But also, we need also to work as a country. Because education is not only the mandate of government. Education is the mandate of everyone. And should be a national conversation. But the transition has had challenges. But I understand and I know and I have hope that in the next few years, the transition will be smooth because people will be used to the system.
Okay. Evans, where is the disconnect here?
Thank you, Trevor. And thank you for having me at this particular point to air my views on matters education system in this country. First and foremost, let me begin by saying education system in this country has been politicized. The reason I'm saying that is because you find that education system is being made as a campaign tool by politicians. For instance, a leader of which all Kenyans have heard them, a leader who is maybe a Form 4 dropout, goes campaigning, telling people that when you elect me, I'll issue laptops to the students. When you elect me, I'll give bursaries. I'll increase bursary from 5,000 to 10,000, 15,000. This is somebody, if you don't campaign for him, he has got agents on the ground who will see you. And when he is elected, the person who never supported him, for instance, if he's in a Form 4 class, Form 3, or high school, or a university or tertiary institution, will not get the support that is needed. So the major challenge here is politicizing this education system. I would request that let the government centralize all these education programs in one area. By saying that, we need to see that the bursaries, the education policies are implemented by an independent body. Because there is no way, Trevor, you will tell me, we support a certain leader so that we have increased the bursary allocation. We support a certain leader because when he is elected, he will issue out the laptops to the students. Let us do away with this issue of politicizing the education system. That is where the main challenge is. Let us have the education system handled separately with an independent body that doesn't favor. Because, for instance, you see, when the government issues the capitation, at least it's fair to each and every student or pupil in school. He receives that. The government doesn't know you by name, just issues money because it answers. We have got statistics, we have got figures in certain schools in this country. And therefore, we ask the government that the bursaries issued to the MCS, the MPs, governors, and women reps should be centralized. Let us have a central body. We can even call it the centralized funds, so that this money can be allocated to students or pupils without looking at who voted for me, who never voted for me. The moment we cover that, I want to assure you the system of education is going to run in a better way. Lastly, on the same, Trevor, we also have this issue of teacher deployment.
Yeah.
Politicians are going all over this country saying, you know what, because I want a second term, because I want a third term, I want to ensure that all teachers who come from my constituency are brought in the home area. What about that teacher who secured this opportunity without knowing any politician? It means if he's sent to a hardship area, he will have to survive there. But because for my case, I know a certain leader, I'll be given an opportunity. So if I cry today that I don't want to be in Mandera, tomorrow you see my deployment letter, I'm redeployed back to Tongaren constituency where I come from. So the best way, let us have policies that can govern these kind of issues. Let us not have politicians into this matter. Trevor, there's this saddening issue. Politicians dishing out TSC letters in funerals. I come from Bungoma County, and I won't fear speaking up the truth. Politicians are using education system as a campaign tool. They're making pledges using the education system. When you elect me, I'll do this. When you give me an opportunity, I'll do this. And that is why we are destroying this education system. That those who got these TSC letters, these TSC numbers 20 years ago, surprisingly, some of them have never gotten this opportunity. Others just graduated 2 years, 1 year down the line. They're into the education system. There are teachers in high schools, in senior secondary, in junior secondaries. Okay. So I request that this issue of politicizing education system is the main challenge. Okay. Let us do away with that issue.
Okay. Let me bring in Peter on this. Peter, what do you think is the problem?
Thank you, Trevor, for this opportunity.
Yeah.
First of all, let me say that the biggest problem here is that there's a disconnect between government policy and the actual reality on ground. Because number one, yesterday I was watching the president in Meru saying that each and every student should report to school, whether you have uniform or not, whether you have school fees or not. But also let me ask, has the government capacitated the schools to deliver? That is number one. You might tell all the students to go to school. Yes, they'll go to school. You have made it, because it was a public rally, you have made it a political statement for political gain. But in ground, the school is not able to deliver. Number one, the teachers. Maybe they do not have enough teachers. Number two, you know, also the school runs on resources. There's electricity, there's the feeding program in school, which also needs capitation. Number one, government delays capitation. How will the school run? It's something hard for the principals and the owners of these schools. Number two, for the school fees, some parents are not able to afford school fees because also this is also a structural problem, right from poor leadership. Because number one, from this government, most parents are not able to afford the school fees, definitely, because their pay slips, number one, are hugely cut off. So, getting disposable income, even to afford, I've seen on the program that there's some parents who are also complaining of fare because they do not even have a disposable income to fund some of these things. So, besides poor capitation, there's also, schools are not also well equipped. We have seen books are not there. There's also the learning materials. So this is also this is the biggest elephant in the room in this whole issue is poor leadership. Because as I was also looking into this whole issue, also the members of parliament, they are not also giving enough education funds to the students in their respective constituencies. And as my colleague here was saying, most of these problems are because it is more of a campaign tool. A politician goes out there in maybe a funeral, gives out TSC letters to someone who is not even skilled. Then a legitimate case of most probably people who have been graduating in the universities are not even given a chance by TSC also to get admitted into formal employment and to be allocated in schools where they can also teach. So that leads to a problem whereby a school does not have enough teachers, number one. So who will teach these children? So the problem here is not even whether they have got uniform or not. It's because of poor leadership. There's no capitation to universities, to the schools. There's no enough teachers who have been employed by the government to go and teach in these schools. And thirdly, schools are not well equipped. That's the disconnect that is there between what the government rolls out in public and what is really there on the ground. Okay. And lastly, let me also say this. Most of our leaders are taking this opportunity to for political mileage. Yesterday, as I was watching the president in Meru, he was saying that shida yetu ni kwamba wanafunzi wetu si ati hawana school fees, ni kwamba shule zetu hazina capacity ya kuadmit wanafunzi wote. But the problem is, he's using it as a campaign tool, going around impressing people, telling them just go to school, take the children to school, but the school do not have the capacity to deliver. Yes.
Okay. Let me bring Honorable Sheila Sifuma is now joining us, an MCA from Bungoma, right? Yes. Thank you for making time. We're speaking about this education system and what you think is ailing the education sector. You're a member of the county assembly. First of all, what is your experience on the ground and what do you think is the problem?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Trevor, for having me on the show. First of all, let me start by saying my name is Sheila Sifuma, as you've mentioned, from Bungoma County. I serve as a specially elected member representing women. When we came into office the first time in 2022, like in my county, Bungoma, the previous governor was having a scholarship program. When we came in, there was no allocation within the budget to support that scholarship program. So we started at a very hard note because we had to figure out where we get the money to actually support our programs. So a lot of students actually had a challenge to go to school at that particular time. And it became a challenge that we had to solve over the years. But maybe if I got to your question, Trevor, I think the biggest issue, you know, I was hearing my colleagues speaking and I was just here thinking, first of all, bursaries should be abolished. That's my honest opinion. I think all this money that goes to MPs, MCAs, governor, everyone has a small kitty doing something small. But at the end of the day, all this is just a way to show you're working as a parliamentarian. It is just for you to go back to your people and dangle. I know it's a very unpopular opinion to dangle, you know, this is the bursary, I've given you bursaries. But if you look on most of them, there's nothing, again, tangible that they're doing apart from distributing bursaries. So for me, all this money should be collapsed, because all the money belongs to the government. It all should be collapsed to one kitty. Let school be free for all students. That's my position. Another thing, Trevor, when you look at, previously we had industries that used to work. Yeah, we used to have, I'll talk biased to my region, we used to have sugar, we used to have pan paper, we used to have cotton industries, they used to work. Parents used to work and earn a decent living, and they could afford fee. But then, when industry started to die, we introduced bursaries. You know, are we solving a problem, or we just sugarcoated it? I think we need to go back to the basics. We need to get our people back to industries, back to working, back to making a decent income for themselves. I know majority of parents, it's not their wish to go and, you know, to some time, it's almost a thin line of almost begging for a bursary. A parent will want to take their children to school, have that pride that I educated my kids. But, you know, when the resources are not there, when they cannot afford even basic meals, education is not a priority. And I think for any government, they should be responsible for the education of their citizens. Because as is, education is not fully devolved. But I think sometimes there are some roles that are left pending, not exactly knowing where they land and where they don't land. Just a quick example, Trevor, I find some counties where the governor is into primary education, trying to support primary education. Is that a function of the governor? Yeah?
Yes, the ECD.
Yes, he is the ECD and a few TVETs and maybe some vocational institutions. So it's a question of a body coming into place and just ensuring whatever that is in policy is actually translated into action. Yeah.
It's a very interesting perspective. So amalgamate all these bursaries into one kit and ensure that education is free.
Yes.
That's an interesting point. We'll find out what the rest of the panelists think about. Linus, what do you think is the problem here? And how can it be fixed?
Thank you very much, Trevor. I think the problem with the Kenyan education system, I'll put it into three perspectives. The first problem that we have as a country is the problem of policy. We have a number of policies in this country, right from the law. We have the law that defines our education system, right from the Constitution, talking about right to free education to our children, right to access to educational facilities to our youth. And then we have got the Basic Education Act of 2013, in which Part 4, the whole of Part 4 has actually defined how the education system should be, right from free and compulsory education system. So to that extent, I agree with the President, because it is the law that says that we need to have free and compulsory basic education. The Basic Education Act even further goes to define the role of parents in that particular environment, okay? So to the extent to which we need to have our education system accessible, that is already captured in the law. And then when you go further in the education sector, we then also have the basic education curriculum framework, which then defines exactly what then the education should look like. It defines the national goals of our education system. It then further goes ahead and defines the kind of person that we are expected, that particular education system is supposed to produce. The basic education curriculum talks about an empowered learner, somebody who is ethical, and in fact they use the word somebody who has acquired world-class skills, okay? Further down, if you look at the vision of that particular curriculum, the framers of that curriculum had also envisioned a situation of how to implement it. So they further went ahead and recommended that we needed to have an education system that is then supported by the right infrastructure. And they also further talked about the right visionary curriculum. That's the word that is used. But then, that then takes me now to the problem of curriculum. Right now, the issues that we are facing in the country are as a result of the new curriculum that was brought up. And I think that if you look at the history of this particular CBE curriculum and how it was brought in, while it was a recommendation as at the time that we were promulgating the new constitution, I think there was a problem in terms of what exactly was it trying to solve. The problem that we have in this country is that we have actually decided to solve economic problems using education. The major outcry at the time was that 844 was producing crammers and people who were not able to solve problems in society. People who are jobless, and so as a result, the government decided to try and solve the unemployment issue by changing an education system without necessarily having it conceptualized as a whole. Finally, the disconnect also comes in terms of what are the requirements of our education vis-a-vis what the government is doing. So when you look at our CBE education and how it was framed, there was a need to think through the curriculum, and in fact it was thought through, and it was discussed by different stakeholders. Remember at the time when the likes of Susion were putting in their views, the private sector, the teachers, general the educators, the Parents Association, they all had these views. And you remember at the time the Minister for Education, Ambassador Amina Mohamed, came to the conclusion that as a country at that time, we were not ready for this particular education system. Primarily, she indicated the question of cost and the question of infrastructure. So what should have been expected at the time was that when the government was coming in, there was a need for the government to solve the hardware of the education system, because now it was a reality that then we now have the education system. So it was important that the government begins by solving the hardware as opposed to just going into trying to patch the software aspects of it. Okay. So if you look at the hardware, in this case, I mean the infrastructure, the human resource, looking at the school and how they were supposed to be structured and so on and so forth. So I think the major issue is that we have a government who has then failed to undertake its role in terms of solving the infrastructural issues and other hardware issues in the education system.
Okay, I'll take a quick commercial break. When we come back now, we talk about recommendations, still on the same, the education that we want. What should be done going forward? Sifuma says that just abolish all these bursaries and amalgamate them into one kitty. Interesting perspective there. We'll find out what the rest of you think about this. Keep your views coming at Trevor Mbiji at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Citizen Daybreak. We'll see you in just a short while. We'll come back with this conversation and then talk about SHA as well. Is it really working? Send in your views. See you in just a bit.